And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from the Women of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we are going to discuss Teal Swans, why you should never make compromises in a relationship. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this one. I'm excited about it. So let's roll film.
So often when you ask a couple that's been married for a really long time what the key to a successful relationship is, they will say compromise. Compromise is often treated like the sacred cow of relationships, but it's time for this outdated concept to come to an end. It's time for people to redefine what they think a successful relationship is, and to understand that if what they want is a feel-good relationship, then compromise is to be deliberately avoided. We do not feel When many of us are young, we do not feel accommodated and considered by our parents. We feel like our parents are unfair, uncooperative, rigid, and unempathetic. They make unilateral decisions. We feel like they're not genuinely considering and changing and adapting to what we believe is actually in our best interests. But the fact that our parents were this way, and that we couldn't really change it, means that in order to fit into our family unit, in order to stay safe, and in order to get any of our needs met, we had to actually adapt to this. We did this by developing codependent strategies. Remember that codependent strategies are really covert narcissistic strategies. We are a trained...
Okay, that was a very interesting beginning. So, if we should tackle the aspect of raising kids for a quick second. Everything that is taught about raising kids in today's world is based around the lack of capacity that is a monogamous relationship. Men and women have no capacity for their kids whatsoever. This is why they push their kids to kindergarten and school as fast as humanly possible so that they can do the less difficult approach, which is to simply both work, okay? Because kids, they have a lot of needs, especially if they're in the environment that they're supposed to be in my opinion. My opinion, kids should be free, okay? All of their childhood. What does that mean? Meaning free to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, and then parents guide their directions, okay? They guide them by basically allowing them to try different activities, to meet different types of friends, to develop different types of talents, based according to what they deem they feel like wanting to do at any given time, okay? So this is from my perspective as a parent of 3 kids. However, many people will have a different opinion. Their opinion might be to do what she said, basically rigid. You have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to cooperate, and you blah, 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 blah. And you basically are putting a lot of pressure, this is what most people do, on kids, okay? When kids go to school, they're being told to shut up, be quiet, and sit still for 80% of the entire day, okay? And then when they come home, their parents are tired from work, obviously. They come home, they want to chill. They want to relax, okay? The last thing they want to do is basically run around, be crazy with the kids, although the kids, that's what they need now. Over time, you basically see kids becoming kind of sedative and like they're just in front of their computers all the time. And they're basically, it becomes normal to just sit down and do nothing. Unless you manage to be the parents that drive them around and do different activities all over the place after they've gone to school. But very often kids don't want that anymore. So it's kind of like being a kid these days is very messed up. But in my opinion, that's because of monogamy. The way that the system is set up to have 2 people who have no capacity for kids try to raise kids despite that lack of capacity. Wouldn't it be amazing if women had capacity and could raise their kids because they had capacity to do so? But that's a whole system of its own that I'm not going to tackle right now. Let's keep going.
And that by developing these codependent strategies, by compromising over and over again, this makes us a good person and a right person. And is the only way that we're actually going to get our needs met. So we actually experience a reward for doing these things. The problem is that this experience gives rise to 2 very specific things. Things that actually ruin our chances at a positive adult relationship. A deep wounding around not being considered, not being accommodated for, rigidity, and therefore not experiencing compromise. Therefore, the desire for the exact opposite. And when I say desire, I mean desperate desire. 2,
Did you have any idea what she was talking about there? Like, for me, it's just like, boom, went straight over my head. No offense, Teal. Like, you're amazing at... I've seen multiple of your videos in the past. This is the first one I've watched in literally 3 years or something. Or 2. But this one, like... The first 2 minutes, sorry, went over my head. I'm not even going to comment on it because it doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. No offense. Let's go.
the completely erroneous idea that what love is and what it takes to make a relationship actually work is compromise. Not only do they do this in relationships, they expect this in return. To compromise is to settle a dispute or conflict or reach agreement by way of mutual concession. Remember that to concede is to yield, give up or give away something you value. To compromise by definition is to accept something that is lower than is desirable. You cannot do these things without experiencing pain. By definition, this means it isn't actually a win-win scenario.
Okay, now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. This I can completely understand. Thank you for speaking in normal terms, okay? I completely agree with her on this one. Compromise sucks because, like she says, you are giving away something that you both value in order for you to get along or to come to a mutual agreement of some sort. It's basically dumbing it down to the most common denominator that we can agree upon. Well, that sucks. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could actually create a win-win situation where everyone's needs are emotionally fulfilled and everyone gets exactly what it is that they want? Remember, the only thing that men and women want is to be happy. That's it, okay? And compromise comes from the standpoint of we're both unhappy, okay? So we might as well compromise to be less unhappy. But it doesn't mean that, that means we're happiest as we can be. Does that make sense? Like, you will be happier than the misery that we found ourselves in 5 minutes ago before the compromise, but we're not 100% emotionally fulfilled because the thing that we wanted simply hasn't occurred and probably won't occur. So that sucks. And I completely agree with her on this, for sure.
People simply mistake it for one. What you are doing when you agree to a compromise is that you're essentially looking at the other person and saying, I'll take a little pain in this scenario, and you take a little pain in this scenario, or in the future. It's going to be really, really difficult to maintain a long-term relationship doing this, but you may actually be able to maintain a long-term relationship doing this. But it's going to be a painful one. Like, you can't keep doing this thing where you're saying, I'll give up something that's important to me, and I'll take a little pain, and expect it to be a feel-good relationship. It will be a painful, potentially long-term relationship. And this is why I'm telling you it is high time that people redefine what their definition of a successful relationship is. Because so many people see success in relationships simply linked to longevity.
And that's wrong. It's messed up, okay? Like, when people are, like, explaining how long they've been married for, and they're like, we've been married for 20 years and counting. And 25, that was like Will Smith and Jada, 25 years and counting. I'm like, man, like, I would not want your relationship, none so ever, okay? Like, if that was what a relationship or marriage was like, 25 years, like what's the other option? Because I kind of don't want to follow the same path that they had. Like, give me a different option, please, because that one was filled with cheating, or at least the opposite partner doing something we don't want them to do, and a lot of pain, and I'm done with you, and now we're back together, and then, like, a lot of back and forth. Like, why? Why do you have to experience that kind of crap? It doesn't, like, people believe that life is supposed to be hard because most of the time it is for people, okay? Like, I understand the aspect that we're all gonna die, we're all gonna have health and sicknesses and issues and accidents, whatever happens, because we're all trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But from my experience, there are ways to actually have an amazing, joyful, blissful, happy, successful life without the big things going wrong. And when I'm saying the big things, I'm talking about the main, most important relationship in your life, which is your sexual partner. That's the one that should produce the most desirable, the most happy, and the most fulfilling relationship in your life. And if that one is the one that's the hardest, there's something messed up with that. So I agree with her that we should link successful relationship not to longevity, but couple that with happiness. Because the thing is that if you're extremely happy, the longevity happens all on its own. It really does. Like, so let's find a way for a couple, really, to actually be fired up outside their brain about being together with each other. Longevity is going to be automatic because they're going to be happy. Why would they look elsewhere if they're fired up outside their brain? So, yes.
Longevity may be one element of success in a relationship, depending on whether that's something you want in a relationship or not. But it is far more important that you define success in a relationship by virtue of how fulfilled a person feels in that relationship or not.
Yes.
And compromise makes the feeling of fulfillment in a relationship absolutely impossible.
Dang. Okay, now she's spitting facts.
But here's one of the biggest problems with this pattern. People with this deep wounding around not being considered and not being accommodated, to the degree that they associate love with compromise, don't often feel the appropriate level of pain in the experience of concession, because they have already formed this association between giving something up and being loved, or giving something up and loving something so much that it means you're such a good person. Essentially,
okay, she's not making sense again.
Their wires have been crossed well enough to not experience the normal level of pain relative to compromise. These people associate their own willingness to concede so as to be in pain as a loving act that makes them feel good about themselves. And they associate other people's willingness to concede so as to be in pain as a demonstration of love, as well as a confirmation of that person's goodness. They expect people around them to compromise if those people do in fact love them. This is one of many patterns that falls into the category of mistaking pain as love. To understand more about this pattern, watch my video titled, "The Suffer So I Can Feel Loved Relationship Dynamic."
I don't really know what to say here. But, okay.
The other biggest problem with this is that a person who's in this pattern will only be able to seek out relationships that are by definition incompatible. Compatibility is when two things, even if they're different, are able to occur or exist together in alignment without problems and without conflict. In a relationship, it means that well-matched characteristics allow for both people to naturally coexist when combined together and in harmony. Harmony is not difficult to achieve with people who are actually compatible to us, but with people who are not actually compatible to us in some way, it's impossible. Better put.
Okay, first of all, this is a very important lesson because it's not environment that determines whether a relationship is compatible or not. It is completely and utterly based on the man's knowing how to attract a woman. Like, that's it. It basically is based upon him deciding which woman, what kind of woman he wants, and then attracting her. And then creating a conducive environment where she feels fulfilled. If that becomes the case, they are compatible. Simple. They match. There's a match when the man decides there's a match. Okay? Like, if it's not, then it's basically two feminine creatures, hybrids, so to speak, because they're somewhat masculine, somewhat feminine, and both of them are this hybrid situation, then obviously there's going to be compatibility issues because there's no polarity. If there's polarity, which means that the man is attracting the woman the correct way, and then he produces the environment, which is a leadership thing, which means he's masculine, then she's going to be able to naturally let go and surrender into her feminine role, which will then automatically create the solution. Like that now compatibility is a reality. It's all 100% based on the man's ability to create compatibility. Okay? Not based on environment, not based on personality or anything else. Simple.
But it's impossible when we won't acknowledge that incompatibility and continue to try to force the scenario or force them to change or force ourselves to change so as to try to force something to be compatible that actually isn't.
So, do you know what's not compatible? A man that doesn't understand how female nature works. He doesn't understand, has no knowledge of how to create the kind of environment that is conducive for a woman's happiness. Then obviously, as a natural result, she will feel that we're incompatible because the environment you've produced is incompatible to my nature. So as a result, I need to find a man that's more compatible with me than you. But that's not the case because the next guy is going to be just as ignorant. Maybe he'll be a little bit tad less ignorant than the last guy, so she feels happier. But she's going to be just less happy, like less unhappy. If that makes sense, just like I said before. She's not going to have the ultimate fulfillment that she's looking for because in monogamy that doesn't exist, unfortunately. You've been sold on a system that doesn't work, unfortunately. Does that mean that people should be sleeping around? Obviously not. If you've been around my channel for a while, men should never, ever initiate sexual relationships with women that they've never or that they haven't committed to for life, okay? However, monogamy does not work because because a man does not know that monogamy is not conducive for a relationship to be compatible. Okay, like monogamy literally creates hybrid couples where both are feminine and masculine, 50-50 or around there, and it's messed up, it's warped, there's no polarity, less attraction, and over time, long-term relationship, it dies. It emotionally dies, its sexual attraction dies, and that's kind of what makes a relationship kind of fizzle out and kind of be the thing that we do on a daily basis, and we're just surviving. And that's sad because I agree with her that we need to kind of redefine what a successful relationship is. I don't know what her relationship status is, but it would be interesting to know.
For this reason, compromise is that sacred moral good because it's what's absolutely necessary in order to try to keep an incompatible relationship together. I'm going to tell you about this sacred cow of compromise. Okay. When compromise was first created as a social value within the greater society, compatibility was not a concern when it came to relationships, especially marriages. Marriages were really about keeping two people together no matter whether they were compatible or not. Marriages were established for totally other reasons, and the couple had to make it work, and make it work forever. To do this, with an incompatible partner, which so many of them were, you had to be willing to concede and take a little pain, or a lot of pain, to make it last.
And really, it was the women that took the vast majority of pain, okay? Because they were told by society and everywhere else that they needed to be submissive to their husbands, right? Which is a problem when the man is completely ignorant about the woman, has no idea how to, for example, sexually fulfill her, or fulfill her in any other way, and then she still, no matter what, 100% of the time, needs to be submissive. Do you understand how hard it's been for women throughout the ages? Like, we're talking thousands of years of women suffering through this, of being in that situation with the partner that they very often did not like. Because monogamy is monogamy, no matter what age it was. But can you imagine in a society where you'll be punished if you get a divorce, or if you cheat, or if you do something else? Like, stoned, okay? We're talking death, okay? So it's been a very, very different situation for women up until today. It's completely messed up today too, but at least women are free. So now we're able to see what's up. We're able to see what's going on in the female psyche, and it allows us to have tons, like millions upon billions of case studies available online of what happens in relationships and how the female brain works. So if we understand female nature, which is great, because without feminism, this would not be a possibility. If we now understand it, we can literally take piece by piece and create love, the in love, and also the staying in love aspect. We can make it into a science where we understand what happens when and why, which is awesome, because now we can actually create those fulfilling relationships if we just understand the puzzle pieces, right? So grateful for history, man, and that I'm born now instead of back then, where basically life would have sucked no matter what you did. But, they were ignorant about how it sucked, so they did their best with what they could. But man, aren't we living a fantastic time? wow. Okay, let's keep it that way. I don't want to go back to the crazy old days. We've progressed, and it's important that we progress, but we need to progress in the right manner, taking what's good from the past and then move on with better things or better thinking and better ways of doing things. Better leadership really is the key.
Therefore,
and you can't really be a leader unless you understand. Like, ignorance is basically the opposite of leadership. Leadership, you got to understand, like knowledge, right? Applied. That's leadership. So when you have that, you can actually, then you can figure things out and you can teach others, and then we can progress.
4. Compromise is what you teach someone if you want them to be in an incompatible relationship and to make it last. One of the best examples that I've heard anybody give for why compromise is so often a big problem is the story of a married couple. It's a man and a woman in this scenario. The man in the scenario, the husband, has 2 pairs of shoes. One pair is brown, the other pair is black. He loves the black, hates the brown. She loves the brown, hates the black. And so in order to find that happy medium to settle the difference, basically, he goes out with one brown shoe and one black shoe. What's the lesson here? That scenario we came up with, or that solution or that compromise, was actually worse than either other scenario. Going out wearing one brown shoe and one black shoe is actually worse than just wearing the brown or the black. A person who is looking for that...
And that makes sense, actually. We're really just talking about the power dynamics in a relationship here. Who is the leader in the home? That's really the question. And this is where compromise becomes the key. Because you have women always being the head of the household. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest it. It's probably one of my best videos that I've ever done on the Women of High Value channel. Women are always the head of the household. And then you got the man who needs to be the head of the household if he's going to be sexually attracting his partner, which she needs in order for her to desire to stay in that relationship. Messed up situation. How do we create that power dynamic balance so that the man can be the head of the home and the woman can naturally want to submit to her man? Because that's when the sparks happen. That's when it actually functions, when it works, right? But can women do this in monogamous relationship? And that's really the question that we love to have the answer to.
Feeling of adaptation.
And we have the answer too.
Flexibility, change, concession, accommodation, and compromise, especially if someone's willing to be in pain in order to do that for them, cannot find this experience within a compatible relationship. No matter whether it's a partnership or friendship or work relationship, a relationship has to in fact be incompatible for one or both parties to enjoy the experience of someone having to and being willing to concede and compromise, even if it hurts to do so, in order to demonstrate their love and commitment. For any relationship to be an actual good one, both parties in that relationship have to be committed to the win-win scenario. To learn more about this, you can watch my video titled The Zero-Sum Game in Relationships. What is a zero-sum game and how to end one? But a real win-win scenario is a scenario that's a genuine yes for both parties. Not an, well, I'm willing to concede and take a little bit of pain for your sake. You know that you've come up with a...
This is very interesting because how do you create that? Like, you'll have to be real creative and real quick in the heat of the battle, okay? Like, being in a relationship, especially a married one, when there's kids, things are happening fast, okay? Like, so you need to know what's going on quickly and make decisions quickly in order for things to work. So, yeah, let's figure out the win-win scenario in this one. You don't really have time for that. Like, you need someone to be able to step down and put the foot down, so to speak, in a way that everyone knows that that's what's supposed to happen. So, and it's not supposed to be the woman. Hint, hint. So, yeah, but she's on to something. We need a win-win scenario.
The genuine win-win scenario, when both people come out of the experience feeling like they found a good deal. Not like they both had to give up something important so as to meet at some central point where neither is actually happy. And the way to reliably guarantee that you're going to be able to do that again and again is to realize how important compatibility is in a relationship. You must seek out compatibility in your relationships.
And that's where she gets it wrong. She's completely right about the aspects of we need to find a win-win situation. Yes, but how do you do that in the heat of the moment, heat of the action, when you know, when lives are on the line because of safety reasons, okay? Kids, you know, electricity sockets, kids doing this, that, and the other. Okay, like, it's crazy, okay? But we simply need more capacity. That's really all we need. Like, so it's kind of a luxury thing in a monogamous relationship to ask for this, what she's asking here. It sounds like there's no kids involved, okay? Like, once there's kids involved, it's kind of like you have to move towards compromise because there is no other solution. Because you can't. Like, there's no solution right here, right now. We have to just agree to kind of disagree, but let's move on anyway. It's you and me. Let's get together through this type thing, which sucks, okay? So, but let's see what she says here at the end, because she's basically saying that, oh, it's all about compatibility. And yet it's not, because that's completely 100% deemed on the man. Is he able to make you feel as if it's compatible? Because that's 100% in his control. You don't have a choice in the matter as a woman, unfortunately. If you're attracted and he's the best high value man around, you will want him. If he's not the highest value man around, you'll be unsure whether you want to commit to him, because you have multiple options and you're not sure if he's the highest value guy you have around. But if you come to the conclusion that he is and you're attracted to him, you have no choice but to actually surrender to the commitment to be in that relationship with him, because there is no other option. Emotionally, as a woman, you will choose that guy no matter what. So you don't have a choice in the compatibility part of the relationship that you're in. That's up to him. What you do have a choice in, if you are unburdened, is the environment of your dating experience. Meaning, you choose who you say yes or no to for the first date. Okay? Sometimes. There are times when men are able to, make you so attracted that it's impossible for you to say no to a date. But if you have an auto suggestion or auto clicker or whatever we're gonna call it, thing in your brain that says no to every guy, no, you'll be on automatic whenever a guy asks you to date him, even though you feel like saying yes. You have a no switch in your head. So you'll always say no, but you'll always think about, oh, maybe I should have, or whatever. You don't have control over this aspect. The only time you do have some control is before you're emotionally involved. The moment you're emotionally involved, all control is gone for women. You have to know this as a woman, or else you'll try to discipline yourself to try to find a relationship solution which you don't have. The wisest thing is to stay away from all guys, until you have a short list of options that you've gathered together with your friends and family, and then you begin to court them, okay? 1, you court the person that you find is interesting from that short list of people, and it needs to be a guy who understands how to make your relationship compatible, so that you feel that, oh, we're a match made in heaven. Who created that? How did he do it? He did it. And it's him creating the environment that makes you feel that way. Okay? Very important, this stuff. Because she's basically saying that you have a choice in the matter, and I'll tell you right now, you don't. My experience from talking to a lot of women and from studying a lot of case studies. And does that take away your freedom? No, it doesn't. But once you're emotionally involved, yes, your freedom is gone. Then you got to be real careful. And how are you going to do that? Exactly. So don't get emotionally involved unless you know for a fact that he is an amazing guy with a track record, with a stamp of approval from friends and family would be awesome. But in my opinion, from the Men of High Value Network, we're going to create this huge system eventually where we're going to have stamp of approval for guys. Maybe we should confirm them on the blockchain. That would be cool, right? You can't take it off. Anyway, for those of you who don't understand that joke. But anyway, yes, Awesome. Let's keep going.
You must seek to establish relationship arrangements that are truly compatible. To understand more about this, watch my video titled Incompatibility, a Harsh Reality in Relationships. So often people slip into this strategy of compromise within a relationship because, to be quite honest with you, they do not feel like they have what it takes to face the reality of the incompatibility in their relationships because of what facing it would mean.
Facing it would mean that you have to break up, and relationships were not designed to be broken up. Breaking up means creating emotional baggage for one or both parties. And very often, when it's with the guy that you want to stay with or that you're emotionally involved with, and there is incompatibility, you want to, like, the only incompatibility for a woman, real incompatibility, is when you're not attracted to him, meaning you're not emotionally involved. So what about when he rejects you? Meaning when something is incompatible, like you have a decision to make. He disagrees. The moment he disagrees with you, you're sucked back into his world, okay? Like you're literally, and you can't control this. You're sucked back into his world, and now you can't run away. You're now rejected, meaning you're emotionally involved, and there's no way out. He has now full control over you, and if he leaves, he has control over that for a very long time. Maybe even for life, unless you have someone who manages to heal you, okay, by putting you in the now, okay, in a blissful now. That's really the only way that a man can truly heal you from emotional baggage that happened with other men in the past. Okay, so you see that aspect. Oh my gosh, like women have to be real careful about who they get involved with. And this is why I say that you should never ever date. Don't do it unless you're courting for a lifelong committed relationship. Crucial, because the moment you date, okay, and you become emotionally involved, then the man is going to have power until he commits to the long term, which is sickening because it's sickening from the standpoint of, man, it's such a universe twist of affairs, so to speak, because the man now he's the one who's stuck. And now you feel incompatible because you're not sexually attracted to him anymore. And then it's basically just back and forth, fighting and fighting and fighting. And it's the fighting that keeps you guys together. Unless you understand the stuff that we teach, because then you can keep together even though you have peace in the relationship. But, oh my gosh, this relationship stuff, it's so cool once you understand it. Because you can like nitpick everything, single thing. But anyway, just keep going. She's doing a great job. Hey. Let's go.
Compromise is actually a sacrifice. Compromise, therefore, is a recipe for absolute resentment. When someone makes a sacrifice in a relationship, they consciously or subconsciously expect a payback or reward for it later. It becomes an I did this for you back then, so you need to do this for me now scenario. And if that payback or reward doesn't materialize, they'll be resentful. Resentment in a relationship is a corrosive force.
That actually was a really cool one. I really liked
it.
That.
Becomes...
If it's acting, it's really cool.
And I did this for you back then, so you need to do this for me now scenario. And if that payback or reward doesn't materialize, they'll be resentful.
Actually, yeah, that was acting because you can see she kind of smiles, but it didn't become acting anymore when you put the finger out. But that was really cool though. I like that.
Resentment in a relationship is a corrosive force.
Yes.
This means compromise is a ticking emotional time bomb.
Yes. And why do you think long-term relationships suck? It's like you have a huge problem with a person that you're not compatible with, you don't get along, you're not sexually attracted to him anymore, remember? That's what naturally happens in all long-term relationships. Not because you guys are arguing, but because he's just a failure. He's a failure in creating the environment that produces excitement for you. So he's a failure. He's powerless. And then in addition to that, he gives you problems and he gives you issues and he's unwilling to do that and he's just difficult to be with. That's a recipe for divorce. It's a recipe for relationship dissolution. Do you see what I'm saying? But if you're sexually attracted to him, which you very often won't be without the fighting in a monogamous relationship, like what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do in monogamy? It sucks. Oh my gosh, you're locked in to a corner and you can't do anything about it. You're both stuck. And this is why you have to compromise. And yes, you'll have depth. You'll have your best friend for a long period of time. And you be together for 20, 30, 40 years if you manage to get through it, okay? Alive in one piece. And you're great. You'll have moments of bliss and joy together on that journey. Maybe even 50% is going to be amazing. 60, maybe 70, 80% is going to be amazing. But the 20% you're going to hate. You're going to hate it so much. You're just like, oh my gosh. Like, oh. And not because of the other person, but because of the system. The system that is designed in such a way that you will not, and you cannot, be emotionally fulfilled on a continual, constant, 100% basis. And we're supposed to. Like, we're literally designed to be happy all of the time, especially women. But men, we have to go through rejection. But guess what? We can actually choose our own happiness throughout that experience of rejection. Women can't. If women go through rejection, they're going to be miserable. There's no woman on planet Earth that can be fired up outside her brain, okay, in a miserable situation. She will be miserable because she's an environmental creature. You can't decide that. You submit to nature because you are nature. Okay? So, anyway, let's keep going.
It's a guarantee that when you compromise, you will remember having done it. And the next time you get into a conflict, you're going to use it as leverage and hold it over somebody's head, saying, I compromised last time. In order to be a good person, you need to compromise this time. It becomes a form of moral blackmail. Either you're going to do that or you're going to compromise again. And guess what? You're going to end up feeling like a total doormat that everyone just walks on.
Both parties feel like that, by the way. The woman feels like that because her emotional needs are not being met. And then the man feels like that because he keeps submitting to the needs and everything that needs to happen in order to fulfill you, and nothing ever does. Nothing fulfills a woman in monogamy. Like, this is why people rack up debt, because women spend and spend and spend and spend again in order for them to find fulfillment somewhere, anywhere, new stuff, because she can't get the emotional fulfillment elsewhere. She's a now creature, and she needs new, something new, entertainment. I need something to fill the void, because it cannot be filled. And that's monogamy. It cannot fulfill women. This is why we're teaching what we teach on this channel, to help women, if we can, okay, to understand how this system works. Maybe I can be an environment for women that helps women see, oh, this is why my relationships have been that way. This is why my relationships have been that way. It kind of makes sense now. Good. But it's not designed to make you depressed. It's designed to give you hope and to get you fired up outside your brain that we've got it. We found out, in my opinion, the solutions to you being happy forever once you actually find the man that you're looking for. Okay? He's not going to be perfect, but you're going to be 5 times to 10 times happier than if you had to go through this lifelong experience with monogamy. You don't know what kind of system we have yet, but I'll maybe explain it at the end, or just watch all of my other videos, or at least the last 10. How about that?
When we compromise, we're not actually being loving. When we ask other people to compromise for us, we're not actually being loving.
That's a good point, actually. Because you're asking them to compromise. You're saying, what you value is not important, so I need you to sacrifice that. So I completely agree with her on this. I love the sentence, what's important to you is important to me. And that has guided our relationship a very long time. And it has worked quite well. According to monogamy standards.
Other people compromise for us, we're not actually being loved. If by watching this episode, you realize that you're somebody who believes or believed in compromise, I need you to see something and really accept it, and it's going to be hard. You ready for this? Compatibility, or the lack thereof, suggests that there are some things for which flexibility can exist, and some things for which flexibility can't actually exist. When we compromise, we have not actually found the win-win scenario. What we've decided is that a bad deal is better than no deal. And I'm going to tell you something. No matter what compromise it is that you make, you will always measure the decision you made or the compromise you made next to your ideal scenario, and it will always come up short, which is a recipe for the opposite of life satisfaction. Bottom line is, we compromise in order to stay safe. We compromise in order to avoid something that we fear desperately. This means that when we compromise, it is not actually motivated by what we do want. It's motivated by what we don't want.
Fear.
Settling does not...
Fear! Oh my gosh. There's a great quote from one of my favorite movies that I grew up with called Strictly Ballroom. I never learned to really dance, but it's an amazing movie. It's Australian, and in that movie, one key phrase is, "We lived our lives in fear." And that was basically the father saying that his son, don't live your life in fear. Go out and do what you need to get done. Have courage and do it despite the fear. And that is such an amazing concept in order to help you to have an amazing life. To not live your life in fear. To live your life with courage. To try to figure out the win-win scenario in the best possible way. Which means you have to figure out what you want. What do you want, right? Like, unfortunately, you have a warped understanding of what you want. Because you got to figure out what you deeply want. And if those desires are masculine desires, it's not what you deeply want. And that's a video for a completely different time. But the more you move towards femininity as a woman, the more you'll discover the things that you truly want. Those are the things that have the opportunity to completely and utterly fulfill you to the brim, okay? And that's not possible if you're still in your masculinity. So you will truly not fulfill your potential, your full life potential, which is your feminine potential, without finding that man who's able to bring that femininity in you. Wow. It's an amazing concept once you understand the aspect of, I need to be unburdened. That's what femininity is for women. I need to be unburdened. That's my life goal. If you can be unburdened at all times and all places, you're going to live a fantastic life as a woman. Is that possible? For the biggest things in life, yes, it is definitely possible. You just need the right man. This is what you're going to find here with the Men of High Value. I've got the other channel that's for men, and we're coming to the rescue. But I can very good information in this video, some extremely hard to understand. I hope that I'm not the only one who didn't understand what she was talking about. But then she has some key phrases and things that actually does make sense. So good on you, Teal. Settling does not lead you to a happy life. I completely agree. You want to go for the 100%. Why would you want to live your life? Oh, I'm 50% happy. I've had a good life. Good is the enemy of best, okay? Like, you don't want a good life. You want the best life. You want the most amazing possible life that you can possibly get. Does that mean that you're going to run up short to getting the best? Well, you know, it's kind of like shooting for the stars. You'll hit the telegraph pole, okay? Like, shoot for the stars. Go for it. Some people would say that, well, that brings misery. No. Staying in your fear and not understanding how the world truly works, that will not lead you to a happy life.
Not lead you to a happy life. Sacrifice does not lead you to a happy life. To learn more about this, watch my video titled Self-Sacrifice, the most self-centered thing in the world. Compromise also often leads us to bait and switching people, and this is how it happens. When we're initially presented with an incompatible situation, and we decide, okay, I'm going to make a compromise, we often agree to something without really thinking through what it will actually be like to practically apply that concession that we just made. To implement some concession is often quite different than simply making the decision that you can do that. So a lot of times, and I mean most times, when people make one of these compromises, they end up in a situation where they realize they can't actually follow through with it. It's impossible to uphold. This means they eventually get led to a crossroads. Either they have to stay in hell for the sake of integrity, or they have to lose their integrity and go back on their word. When it comes to this conversation about relationships, what really matters is not what you do for the relationship, it's how you feel about what you do for the relationship. A genuine win-win scenario leaves you with a good feeling. Compromise, by definition, doesn't leave you with a good feeling. Because when you give up something that's important to you, you feel that internal resistance. You feel that internal protest. If you bulldoze that feeling and go through with the compromise, you will end up in ever-increasing degrees of pain. And so, to wrap up this conversation, compromise makes a feel-good relationship impossible. Compromise is the enemy of harmony. Compromise is the enemy of fulfillment, therefore the enemy of happiness. And compromise is the enemy of actual agreement. Have a good week.
So I agree with basically what she says here, because we never, ever use that word in our family. Me and my wife, we've in the last 7-8 years where we've begun to understand relationships, there's no such thing as compromise, okay? But there's a lot of times when I basically just let her have her way. Why? Because that's monogamy. And if you're going to try and make monogamy work, you basically have to allow the woman to be the head of the household, and she will resent you for it. And that's monogamy for you. That's one of the biggest reasons why it sucks. And what do I suggest instead? Understand the concept of 3 in love. 1 man, 3 women who harmoniously live together, because the man always takes the blame and he's rich, so that they can actually live a massively fulfilling life, doing what they want to do, when they want to do it, with the people that they desire to do it with. That's the kind of lifestyle that we want to set you up for, which is an amazing message. For those of you who want to stay in monogamy, you're either not going to believe the stuff that I teach, or it's going to depress you, okay? Instead, try to understand that point of the story, okay? The point of 3 in love, which is far beyond your grasp right now, probably. But try to understand, how would it actually look if I massively enjoyed the company of the 2 other best friends that I have, and we enjoy everyday life together? How would it look like? Would it be easier to take care of the kids? Will it be easier to take care of the home? Would it be easier for my man to work 80 hours a week or 60 hours a week, or whatever he wants to do, instead of him having to be a mother and come home and take care of diaper changing and doing the dishes and vacuuming the floor and doing whatever else a man has to do these days in monogamy? Is it better if you had 2 best friends that you are harmoniously living with to take care of all of the practical things? Would you more be able to nurture the kids, to have pregnancy, to have birth, to have all of these things in life that you want to do? Would it be easier to cook? That's the only thing we're looking for. What is practically going to make life easier for you? And you'll find that 3 in love, there's nothing that can compare to it. This is the Women of High Value channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.